Hey, everybody. Welcome to the morning market briefing. It's Tuesday, November 8th, 2022. Hope you're doing well. Different call today. It is election day. So we're going to be talking a lot about the midterms, races we're keeping an eye on, all of that good stuff.
Sorry,
Tom says, want to open up just high level pulse. How you guys feeling? You voted? Feeling good?
Voted is good turnout. DOJ was at my polling station.
Yeah, what was that like?
There were two women who came in, like, cut in front of the whole line and then talked in hushed tones to the poll workers. And then they kind of stayed outside, and then I went in, and then I heard on the phone call one of the poll workers saying, "Yeah, I got two women from the DOJ here. I don't know I wasn't told about this. What they said that they want to come in and watch." And apparently she must have been told, let them in, because the DOJ people came in, even though you're not allowed to be in there if you're not a poll worker or a poll watcher. And the DOJ people came in and were just watching over everybody, and it was incredibly uncomfortable, and I kind of wanted them to get out.
Justice, though,
Yeah. Did they run?
I don't know how they have jurisdiction. I don't know how they have jurisdiction. Like, how does the federal Department of Justice come into my precinct, my local election, and watch what I'm doing?
I don't know.
I was very
Ben's on edge about this.
I am. So anyway, that
Tom,
was
any unique experience?
No, not really. I did get there pretty early though, and it was really awkward. I was just telling Andrew this story. I walked in, there's probably four people milling around, but there was one woman who decided that every time someone new walked in, she was going to announce where she was in line, but that she was going to go stand in the hallway and make sure that everyone had enough space, even though there was, it's basically a municipal gym
With six people.
Six people in it. Yeah. She's like, these two people are ahead of me. I'm third in line, but I'm going to go stand over here. Of course, as soon as the thing opens, if you write your name slowly, you lose your place in line anyway, which she definitely did, because she was not voting by the time I got in there. So not to brag, but I can write my name and address pretty quick these days.
Man, big time.
Yeah.
I did the early voting thing a couple weeks ago. Went fine. So I don't know. Seems like everybody's getting their votes in. Big day. As we kind of set out, I want to start at a high level kind of expectations of what you guys are thinking will happen with both the Senate and the House, and then drill into some specific races you guys are looking for. Right now, I guess the Senate's still kind of in toss-up territory is the general expectation. Republicans have made up some ground over the last couple weeks. Again, the Republicans are hoping to regain a majority, which would need them to get to 51, 50-50. The tie is going to continue to be broke by Vice President Harris. Ben, how likely do you think it is that they can get there?
I think it's pretty likely. I think it'll probably be 51-48 going into it, and then you'll have the runoff. I do think that Manchin is at this point basically a Republican. So, I don't expect them to be able to do much, because I do expect the House to go solidly to Republicans, in which case even budget reconciliation will be extremely difficult to get through the Senate, and the Senate is ultimately not going to be able to do a whole lot.
Tom?
Well, this is breaking news. Logan just put this in the chat. The Justice Department is monitoring polls in 24 states for compliance with federal voting laws. And Cobb, Fulton, and Gwinnett are all on there. And it looks like about half the state of Massachusetts as well. So there's a bunch of different precincts that seem to be in their sites in Cobb County, which I'm assuming yours is Cobb. Are you Cobb or Fulton? Yeah. So you're in the crosshairs, but Cobb, Fulton, and Gwinnett are on there. In terms of how it's going to go, I think ultimately, I think Manchin is going to be kind of the key either way. So win or lose, Pennsylvania and Georgia are the big two. Obviously everybody's watching. I think that if you get one or the other or both, that could flip the House. But Manchin, I think, has to, if he wants to be reelected next time around, he's going to have to flip Republican after all of the anti-coal mining rhetoric that's been thrown around, particularly in the last couple of days. And he called for a formal apology from Joe Biden for saying that he's going to destroy the coal industry. So I think he's, if he wants to continue, he could retire by getting voted out, but people usually don't do that. And so I would say that there's a high likelihood that win, lose, or draw, Joe Manchin is probably going to change parties here sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. I mean, if you look at the Senate, it seems to me the states to watch, not necessarily the only states to watch, but at the high level, I would put Georgia on that list. I would put Pennsylvania certainly on that list. Nevada. Also think Arizona could get interesting. All of those are kind of in that gray territory where it kind of seems like things could go either way. I kind of agree with Ben's point that I think Georgia is probably going to go to the runoff. And I would be quite surprised if Herschel Walker has the stamina to withstand that. I'd be very surprised if I have the personal stamina to continue to watch another month and a half of these commercials. It's brutal. You can't even watch TV with your kids because there's just back-to-back commercials about who abused their ex-wife harder and who should have been arrested first. It's so bad. It's ugly. But Ben, what are some specific races that really kind of draw your attention?
Yeah, you hit on one, Pennsylvania. I continue to be surprised by that fact that that's still a toss-up. I think that the Pennsylvanians have more common sense than this. I think there's anyone who watched that debate and just prima facie is saying, I can't vote for Fetterman. But I guess we'll see what happens. Right now, the polls have Oz at 46.8, Fetterman at 46.5. So it's really a toss-up. And I don't think that there's a huge shy element to the vote in Pennsylvania, because if you're a shy voter, I would be more shy of voting for Fetterman than voting for Oz. Second race that I'm watching is the Oregon gubernatorial race. The outgoing Governor Kate Brown, it was voted the most unpopular governor in the United States. So it's uphill sledding for Betsy Kotek, who's the Democrat nominee there. She's in the lead, 43.6. Christine Drazan has 42.2. She's the Republican. She's made up a lot of ground and has actually been ahead in some of the polls. And the reason for this is Betsy Johnson is the independent candidate who's gotten a lot of money, almost $4 million from Phil Knight back in the springtime, because Phil Knight was so frustrated with the Democrat administration. He said, quote, one of the political cartoons of our legislative session had a person snorting cocaine out of a mountain of white. And it said, which of these is illegal in Oregon? The answer, the plastic straw.
Man,
And so he is very unhappy with that. He doesn't usually get involved in politics. Recently, he actually just switched from Johnson to Drazan, the Republican candidate, gave her $1 million. It does seem that Johnson has fallen off a little bit, and a lot of that support has gone to the Democrat Kotek, which has allowed Kotek to slip a little bit into the lead. And she's also pushed the abortion issue very hard, saying that the minute Drazan gets into office will be the minute that you have healthcare restricted in the state of Oregon. So that's Drazan's message. Polls don't close till 8 p.m. there. So earliest we would expect anything would be 11 p.m. here, but stay up because I think that would be a very interesting race. And the final race I'm watching is Washington State, where I grew up. Patty Murray has been the incumbent senator for the last 30 years, but she's taking on a big task by Tiffany Smiley, a nurse. She has a really interesting story. Her husband, Scotty, was blinded in the line of duty in Iraq. He's the first active duty blind officer in the Army. She lives in the eastern part of the state where I grew up in Pasco, Washington. She's right now behind by 5 points, 49.5 to 44.5, but she's made up a lot of ground. And I think the national narrative is that Washington's a solid blue state. It's not. Even on the west side, in the more liberal areas, you have a much more libertarian focus. And again, Patty Murray is also saying as soon as Tiffany Smiley gets in, healthcare access is going to be restricted, abortion is going to be restricted. That's the message. I actually think that's going to be a fairly weak message because Smiley is a nurse. I think she, I just think that this race is incredibly tight. Murray won with 59% of the vote in 2016. and it's certainly one to watch. Patty Murray's probably going to win it, but don't sleep on Smiley.
Nevada's one I'm keeping an eye on. You've got Catherine Cortez Masto is the incumbent senator, Democrat. Adam Paul Waxalt is really kind of closing the gap there. This is definitely a toss-up state. Both of them former attorneys general in the state of Nevada. Right now, it's basically a dead heat. What's interesting about this is just how much, I think in a lot of ways, this is representative of what we've seen maybe broadly and even in kind of a generic ballot, Republican versus Democrat. But 2 months ago, most forecasts gave the incumbent, the Democrat, Catherine Cortez Masto, about a 2/3 chance of winning. And now Laxalt is slightly favored to win. So I think that could be very interesting. That's certainly a state that would aid the Republican cause in the event that went the direction that you're looking for if you are a Republican. So that's definitely one at the top of my list. I think the other thing I'm interested to see is actually right here in Georgia. I'm very interested to see the polling spread between Brian Kemp and Herschel Walker. I think everybody understands the flaws with Herschel Walker as a candidate. I think it would be, if I were thinking as a Republican strategist, I would be looking for a rallying cause to say, hey, we can't just run celebrities over and over. I think both sides of the aisle need to be looking at that. But I think this could be perhaps a really clear shot to say, look, Kemp pulled in 10 points more than Walker. We've got to get smarter about who our candidates are. I think on both sides of the aisle, there's probably some frustration with the quality of the folks on the ballot, not just this time, but just consistently over the last several election cycles. And I think that could be hopefully maybe a turning point where we start getting a little smarter and more strategic and not just solely focused on name recognition. Tom, any races you're?
I mean, I'm outside of, local politics, I really don't pay a ton of attention. I mean, obviously it relates back, and all the races you guys have talked about, I pay attention to. Definitely not the Washington one. I have zero interest in the state of Washington, man. No offense. Honestly, I to your point though, running the celebrities, I mean, it's kind of getting old. I mean, Dr. Oz isn't even a top 5 TV doctor. I mean, he's definitely not the Good Doctor. I don't know if you guys watch that show, but
Yeah, he's definitely not.
I typically watch the first 3 minutes of it when it comes on and just wonder what on earth people watch on TV. But yeah, we'll see how it turns out. At the end of the day, I feel like local politics affect everybody more than the national politics. And so, that's where I will be paying attention. But, we'll see how it goes.
The Republicans seem quite likely to win the House. A lot of seats up for grabs there. Obviously, there's so many more candidates here, so much more nuance there. I think the thing I would caution against with anybody is, you got to kind of understand the expectation. It's no different than when a company is reporting earnings. The Republicans, picking up seats, so to speak, is not necessarily a huge win or a red wave in the House. That's at this point kind of the expectation. And Ben, anything there that you're keeping an eye on?
Yeah, I would say that we're probably going to see 2010 light. If I have to compare it to something where 2010 was just a landslide for the Republicans, and I think we're going to have something similar, but not as extreme this time around, primarily because of the candidates that are running on the Republican side. However, I would also say, I don't really think that this is going to have a meaningful impact on the markets long term or even underlying economy. And I know that might be a controversial statement, but I really don't think that this will matter all that much. In 2010 to 2012, we really didn't see much of a change in the trajectory of the economy. And also, I don't think it has much of an impact on the markets beyond a week or so. In 2010, just using that as the corollary, you saw a big gap up on the day that the Republicans won, about 2-3%. That followed through for the rest of the week. And then by the 10 days later, you were right back to square one. Now, it did rally a little bit over the next few months into March and April. But bear in mind, this preceded a shutdown of the government, a downgrade of the government debt rating in the summer of 2011. So if anything, the Republicans come into power in that election was bad for the economy. So I would just say it's going to be nuanced, and we're not trading off of the politics, and we're trading off of the underlying economic data, and I think we all kind of know where that is.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing that I would remind people, especially in speaking with clients. I think there is this. There's been so much uncertainty, and elections cause uncertainty, can certainly heighten volatility in the market and even just in everyday personal life. But the notion that we're going to get a specific result and the market is just going to sustain a prolonged rally because of that, I think is quite faulty. Historical data certainly suggests that. That's not to say that this cannot have a prolonged impact. If we think of a Republican sweep, so to speak, and the Senate regained by Republicans, and a solid majority built up in the House, if that's what you want to see, that's favorable. But you also need to understand that you still have a Democrat in the White House. You're not going to have this rapid change of pace towards things like deregulation and more oil production, things like that. I think there's certainly sectors that could benefit from a change in the congressional makeup, but again, that's not necessarily going to be an overnight success story were it to happen. Tom, any thoughts on market implications?
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be sort of the underlying theme that a red wave would be net positive. I think it's a wash. 5 days from now, I don't think people would be talking about it.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, and I think I think we're going to continue to see the trend on the election stuff as well, that although it's gotten easier and more technologically advanced than ever to vote, it's going to probably take a while to have some final results on some of these things, including some runoffs. So I doubt that we are sitting here tomorrow with full clarity on the outcome, but maybe we will be. Who knows? Any other closing thoughts, Ben?
CPI is going to be the most important thing this week, I think, on Thursday.
Totally agree. We'll wrap it up there. We'll be back tomorrow. Make sure you vote. If you don't vote, you can't complain.